Do pop pop pop. All right, we're rolling live from the wasteland out here next to Survival Pod. This is Freedom Phil, just chilling in the shade of my van. And what's the topic today? Um, you know, I was thinking of this solution, and it'll likely never happen when it comes to the housing issue. It won't totally solve it, but it would go a long ways. Just saying, because I see a lot of people, old people, in houses that, frankly, if you look at it, it's way too big for them. And I get that you love your house, you're where you're at, and all that crap. But imagine for a second if you just change things a bit, and maybe this could work out for everybody. Yeah, Freedom Phil, like, subscribe, what we're talking about, whatever it is. And hey, man, when I upload the video, you should be watching at 1.75. That's why the channel's called Turn Up the Video Speed. Turn up the video speed. So, hey, let's get into it. Like, subscribe. It's like this. I've seen cases where people build their quote-unquote dream house for retirement, and realistically, it's a good investment house. It really is. They'll build like a 3 to 4 bedroom, multiple bathrooms. The bottom floor will be built big enough so you could have a wheelchair if that's ever necessary, garage, all that. And they only realistically use the living room, the kitchen, and their bedroom. Maybe if they're at that point where they're mature enough at old age and there's 2 bottom floors, because, as people get older, but if they don't feel like putting on one of those, little chairs that goes up the stairs, they, by the way, that's a good investment in my opinion. It really is. It's just like, if you're old, who knows, maybe you could claim it on your taxes, but, just like the walk-in showers, it's like, hey, if you could claim it on your taxes, why not? But you look at these houses and they remind me of so it's a nice place and it's allegedly worth a lot, but it's only worth something if you do something with it. You sell it or rent it or do something with it. And that's where I look at it and I'm thinking to myself, let's just say that you actually had a family. God forbid that boomers and people have families they actually care about. I know that's a far cry, but let's just say you sold that house to your family. The family that wants to live there, they're trying to find a place in the city, they can't, and your place is worth anywhere from $500,000 to $1 million or wherever. And then you sell it to them. Well, where are we going to live? Well, you're only a couple at this point. Do you know in a lot of places in the Midwest, there's houses you can buy for around $50,000. Some other old people pass on and they get a house and, the family doesn't want to keep it. So you could buy a house for $50,000. Well, that house might need some work. You're right. But let's just say your house sold for, let's just say you sold it for $600,000. So you have $500,000 floating. I mean, hell, between a couple, if I remember right, the deduction for that is $250,000 per person. So you're talking literally $500,000 there. You could take that money and invest it into the market and do all sorts of things with it, gold, silver, better portfolio, and you'd be collecting dividends from your house that you used to live in or sell, or you could even rent it out and then do improvements on it, claim the improvements on your taxes. What's the point of this? That house, as big as it is, as nice as it is literally just a nice little tomb. It is literally a pyramid. Okay, that's great. You're going to be dead, and then it's going to be sold anyways. As where that house could be making you money. Well, we do a reverse mortgage. Nothing says you're a fucking loser, by the way, like a reverse mortgage. Just saying, nothing says you failed like a fucking reverse mortgage. But, you think about it. How could you do this structurally to where it stays within the family? Well, what if you sold the house to your family members? And then you had in the backyard before, as a capital improvement, maybe even when it was a rental, but maybe you put a sewer dump there. What do you mean? You got a place where you could hook up an RV. Let's just say your family in the north has this house, and you basically, you just drive a trailer up for the summer. Have an RV, you just RV up for the summer. And then the money that you got from the sale of the house, selling it to them, then effectively you invest and your money's now making you how much more money? You have probably more in-house as a retirement plan than you ever had in your own fucking life. Because let's be honest, most of you boomers You try to keep up with the Joneses, the cars, the clothes, the lifestyle, the nonsense. So most of you, you're lucky. You got, oh, we got a little bit of savings, and the Social Security between me and Harold. And so what ends up happening is that you're living, not paycheck to paycheck, but you might as well be. And so you got a nice house, nice palatial estate there. Now this is assuming you could sell it to anybody you like, to where it would make sense to have the little RV dump. But you take that, you sell this, and even if you didn't have anybody to sell to, do you realistically use the majority of your house? And, look, do what you want to do. I know some people, I would never, this is my home. Okay. How much do you pay to heat it? How much do the taxes cost you? How much does the insurance cost you? How much does the entire, if you live in the north, for instance, how much does it cost to pay that snowplow for your palatial estate and up the hill or wherever you live? And I get some people, they're like, well, we like our church and our local community and blah, blah, blah. You could have two communities. You could have this summer. You go up there to visit for the summer when it's nice. Visit your family when it's nice. And then you have your Southern Command, and you have a whole church group down there. And you're down there when it's nice. You never have to worry about the heat. You can go out and walk around like a normal. You could actually exercise more. I mean, some people, you're really into that northern climate, And some people, it might be the reverse action. They might have their palatial estate down there, down south, and they sell it off to their kids. So effectively, during the summer, they come down there for the winter, and during the summer months, maybe they grab the grandkids and go RVing. I don't fucking know. But the point of it is that if you just think about it for a second, how many houses that are owned by old people where they're basically they're living in an asset that is making them no money. Unless you're renting out the other rooms or maybe seasonally renting it out to somebody else, you're not making any money from that. And if you sold it to a family member or sold it to, let's just say you got no family, but if you sold that, bought something smaller, yes, you would be freeing up livable size housing for, families. And you get this giant pile of money that if you invest, I don't know if you've seen what the market's been doing lately, and it won't do this forever. It'll go up, it'll go down, it'll have a so-called crash. That's a great time to buy when the prices are low, and then it'll slowly creep its way back up and get back to being great again. But the point of it is that you sitting in that house only makes you money if it's renting, long-term, short-term, or it's a sale. Otherwise, it's just an asset. And when there's other houses all over the Midwest, you go, if you don't believe me, go online, look up just little towns in Kansas, Texas, the South, all over the place. And people are and then you look at the demographics. What's the crime? What's the type of churches if you happen to be religious? If you happen to be one of those other religions, do they happen to have any of that religion around there? That might be an issue. If you're non-religious, even fucking better. But honestly, a way to get along in a lot of these little towns is just be part of the group, But I just look at this idea. They're like, we need to build more housing. We do. That's no doubt. But we have no shortage of affordable housing in the Midwest, the South, Texas. Hell, if you were an RV person, half the year, say your family's up north, and so you bring the RV up north. So you're basically just hanging out at the house you lived in for years, except for, you have your RV outside. You could just buy a cheap lot, say down here in the wasteland or in the Texas or wherever. And then instead of paying, however much you're paying for utilities, taxes, and all this, you're paying $300, $500 a year in taxes. Take the rest of the money you were pissing away and have fun with it. Enjoy it. Maybe hit the casinos a little bit. Invest in the market. Just saying. And they're like, well, what happens when you get really super old? Well, the same thing that would have happened either way, except for in this case, when you get super old, you would have ended up selling your house anyways. And, at that point, how many years could have the money you would have, if you sold that house a number of years ago, that money could have been making you how much money in the market? So I'm just giving you some common sense here. The house that's bigger than you realistically need, if it's not making you money, it's only costing you money. And I know this because I got a place up north, and the market gets better. I'm fucking selling it. Unless I find some miracle property manager, and even then, if I see the market get good enough, I'd still fucking sell it, because for me, it's just one more goddamn thing to deal with. And how much money could that money be making me? And considering I need next to nothing to get by, I live off out here in the waste, like anywhere from $200 to $300 a month. Oh yeah, buddy. Oh yeah, even like 100,000 invested correctly, I'd be living for the rest of my life. So I can work 1 year and be like good for the rest of my life. And now when I go back to trucking, I'll probably drive until the wheels fall off, because fuck it, I like driving truck. Or until they piss me off enough to where I'm just like, you know what? I don't need to do this ever again. Which, the funny thing is about that, it's like, when you have a bad, you love a relationship, but you have a bad relationship and you're just like, I'm done with this. And then one day you hear the siren song of drive truck, don't you miss the open road, just like with women, where it's like, I'm done with the bitches. And then something walks by and you're like, back in the game, god damn it. There's a lot of things in this life like that, and pick your poison. But yeah, I'm just saying, we could quite literally, there's a lot of houses out there that they're too big for the people that live in them. But hey, it's their house, it's their choice, do whatever you want. I'm just saying that money invested well would be making you way more money than your house is just you living in a giant pyramid-like tomb. Freedom Phil, like, subscribe, take it easy.